Gluing things together is a pretty big part of woodworking, so today I wanted to share some tried and true techniques that I have been doing for years and some new tips that I recently learned. My name is Linn, this is the Darbin Orvar channel. Let's get started. So right now we've been working on a pretty big project in the shop. It's like a kitchen island with a cherry countertop made with rough sawn lumber. So what about gluing a counter like this? So first of all, you don't need as many clamps as you think. I'm using 7 here, so 4 at the bottom and 3 at the top. It's nice to have clamps coming from 2 directions, so from the bottom here and the top to equalize the pressure. You know, sometimes you see pictures and someone has like 40 clamps on a tiny little box. You can't have too many clamps. In terms of clamps, I like these kind of metal bar clamps at the bottom or some version of it. It's nice with something that elevates the board or the wood off the ground. These clamps right here, I mean, they're from Rockler, they're very nice, but you can't tighten them too much. I've had several of them snap on me and break. So you have to, do good pressure, but not too much. And it's the blue metal that snaps. It's not as strong as you might think. And on top here, I'm using these F-style clamps, and these will bow. That's what they'll do if you tighten them a lot. Now, these bar clamps are nice, but one of the issues that I often have with them is that the glue gets stuck on them and then you can't move it very easily, and it's kind of frustrating. But you know what I think these clamps need is some wax polish, because glue doesn't stick very well to wax and it will glide much better. For underneath, I think it's really nice to have something to protect your table or your floor or wherever you're doing the glue up. I like these silicone mats. These come in different sizes. Obviously, you could just use, paper, newspaper, scrap paper, whatever. But the thing about that is, first of all, you have to get new paper, so you go through a lot. And whatever, you're gluing will stick to it. These are Rockler. I've ever only used Rockler, but I'm pretty sure that all silicone mats will be the same. So they're nice because nothing sticks to them, and you can peel the glue off when you get a lot of glue drips on them and just reuse them forever. Having things stick to your table is annoying, but what's even more annoying is when you're in the middle of a glue up and the time is ticking and you realize that something doesn't quite fit together right, or you don't have clamps that are long enough. Things like that. So the thing to do is to always do a dry fit. And I know sometimes you feel like it's a waste of time, you're anxious, you want to glue the piece up, you don't want to mess around with that, but believe me, it's a good idea to do. Another thing to do during this dry assembly is to make sure you mark where all your pieces are going. Up, down, left, right. Especially if it's a project that is somewhat complicated or things can get turned around. It's so easy to be confused and you don't want to glue your parts together the wrong way. In fact, there are a couple of things you can do when you do a dry fit. One of those is to raise the grain beforehand where you are expecting glue squeeze out. Okay, so when you are wiping off, glue squeeze out with a wet rag, you raise the grain. And for the most part, that's not really an issue. You're going to sand your project anyway. But what if you're gluing up something rather delicate and once you have glued that together, it's going to be really hard to reach those areas, and you want to take care of that raised grain ahead of time. Mark that out, wet that area, and sand it down. Like this would be a good option if you're, for example, gluing slats like on a chair or something, and you won't be able to get behind later, times like that. Another way to go during this dry assembly state is to put wax polish on all the seams where you may get glue squeezed out, because then the glue isn't going to stick and you can just wipe it off really easily. Especially if this is a project where you're going to finish it with wax polish anyway. Maybe not if you're going to do some staining after that, I wouldn't do that then. In terms of applying the glue, I really do like these glue kit attachments. Again, this is Rockler because that's what I have on hand, with like a smaller brush to brush it on in smaller areas, and also like one of these to distribute the glue. That's really the key. You want like good surface contact. You don't want glue in some areas and not others. You'd rather have a really thin, even coat everywhere. Now there are some other kind of glue kit things that are more like a paint roller that you kind of roll on, but I have found that they really kind of gum up and they stick and they don't work that well. So I prefer to not use any of those. Just use one of these kind of scrapers top here, the tip here, and this is all silicone, so when the glue dries you can just peel off the glue. Now if you don't have any silicone brushes, another good option is to simply use an old toothbrush. Just make sure to wash it right away in some warm water, otherwise you'll only be using that toothbrush that one time. I prefer to buy large bottles of glue and then pour it into smaller bottles that I can use in the shop. And now here I'm using an old mustard bottle, and I actually find like old condiment bottles like this to be quite good for glue. They seal pretty good and they have a good size, and there's a cap, so good tip. Now one of the perhaps most important questions are like which glue to use, and I have found that it really doesn't matter. Pretty much all wood style glue is fine. This is Gorilla Glue, this is Titebond 3, I've used Titebond 2. I think they're all good for basic, indoor applications. That being said, there is one major difference between the different glues, and that is open times. So in other words, the time that you have to work with your piece before the glue stops being effective. And for a lot of projects, this isn't gonna matter. But again, if you have a complicated glue up, there's a lot of parts and you don't want to feel like so rushed on time, then maybe altering what glue you're using would be a good idea. So here are some approximate open times for different glues. Yellow woodworking glue, 10 minutes. Titebond 3, 15 minutes. Titebond liquid hide glue, like 20 minutes. And polyurethane glue, like 20 to 25 minutes. Talking about temperatures, you definitely want to avoid having your glue freeze. That will alter the state of the glue. So if you have an unheated shop or a garage and you're expecting some really cold nights, this is something to keep in mind. And this is actually true for a lot of things, like water-based paint and finishes. And believe me, I have thrown away my fair share of water-based products in the cold. So make sure your glues don't freeze. The only difference that I noticed is that Gorilla Glue will kind of glop out of the bottle no matter what the temperature is, whereas the Titebond will be much thinner in the warmer temperatures and much thicker in the colder temperatures. So they kind of work a little different when pouring them out. Now, how much glue do you actually need? I would say for most cases you need more glue than you think. Obviously, it matters how many pieces are you gluing, like how many slats do you have. This is a 4 foot by 2 foot piece with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 slats. And for that, we used about, I would say like 2 cups of glue. Now the key, of course, is that you want glue to be spread evenly. You don't want any empty pockets where there is no glue. You need to have everything smooth, planed, no imperfections, no divots or anything like that, because that's going to cause you some problems. Although, if you do, you can always fill it in with glue. Glue solves many things. Of course, make sure to save some of the sawdust from, when you're milling up the wood for your project, so that you can create a perfect little putty to fill in any gaps or holes, just mixing some of that sawdust with a little bit of glue. And you get a pretty good color match that way. So how long to keep the clamps on? Obviously it depends a little bit on the size of your project, the temperature, the humidity, all of that, but I would probably leave these on for like 30-40 minutes, or unless you just kind of forget about it and go do something else and you take them off a couple hours later. But they don't really need longer than that. Even though I would take these clamps off after like 40 minutes, I would make sure I wait until the glue is completely dried before using like a hand plane or sandpaper or anything on this. You don't want to cause any kind of gumming up. The other thing that I prefer to do if I'm going to remove and clean this up by hand is to use a scraper first. Try to scrape off as much of the excess glue as possible before bringing out any other tools. If you're using a scraper here, don't wait until the glue has completely dried before scraping it off. It's a lot easier doing it when it's still not completely hard. Now, if you have a thickness planer and you are gluing together a rather large counter or tabletop, then one idea is to glue it into smaller sections. Small enough so they can fit through your thickness planer. That way you can have a couple of glue ups, all planed without glue lines, and you can glue those together and you have less work to do for yourself. Just make sure you don't plane those, individual pieces down too far, because you want to make sure you have some thickness to work with at the end as well. Now, we didn't use any cross boards here. You know, the ones that are slightly bowed, so you get an even pressure. Instead, decided to use these bottom clamps and these upper clamps. Now, I mean, you obviously could put cross pieces across and clamp them down, but I'm not sure if it's really worth it for a lot of projects. I mean, you're gonna deal with the surface however you do it in terms of cleaning this up. So I'm gonna take it to the CNC and clean it up there. In the past, I would have used a belt sander or a hand plane, you know, get the surface nice and clean, because it's not gonna be completely smooth and perfect after a glue up. That's just something that you have to deal with. Okay, cawls. That's the fancy name for these kind of bowed pieces that you can put on top to clamp and put even pressure on. And for a lot of projects, I don't think this is necessary. But again, if you're doing a delicate glue up where you really want to make sure everything is being touched perfectly, then they can be a good idea. One thing to keep in mind is to make sure that your cawls are made in a softer wood than your project wood. So let's say you're building a project in oak, then make some cawls in, let's say, pine. That way the cawls won't make like marks and indentions as easily on the wood that you're clamping down on. Here's a tip relating to end grain. We all know that end grain doesn't glue up together very well, and if you're doing something structural, you really should add some additional reinforcement. But sometimes you do need like to glue ends together, cutting board or whatever, and one good idea is to size the wood ahead of time. Okay, think about end grain. It has all of these pores. It is really thirsty. It will suck up your glue a lot. So if you're just putting glue on both sides and then putting them together, the wood can just drink it all up, and then there's no more glue left to attach the pieces together. So one way to solve that is to first pre-finish the ends with some glue or glue mixed with some water and let that dry. And then you have a kind of a fresh surface to glue pieces together again. So basically, gluing is not difficult. It can be very stressful sometimes when you have a big project and you know the clock is ticking, the glue is drying, you need to put everything together really well. But as long as you are like prepared ahead of time, that's kind of key, so that you have all of you have your mats, you have your clamps, you have your glue, you have your wood prepared, everything is ready, so that all you have to do is just put all your glue on and put them all together. Then it's pretty straightforward. A couple of my other favorite tips, one of them is using a nail gun as a clamp. So this I like to do especially when I glue together plywood. So if you're gluing plywood together, and basically you just need something to hold the plywood together while it glues, then using like a pin nailer works really well. And then once you have the pieces together, you can always go back and put some screws in or reinforce it in some other way. But it's easier once you have everything like assembled, being held together with nails. Now when it comes to mitered corners, blue tape is a favorite of mine. So just regular blue painter's tape, and you put down your tape and then put down your mitered cut pieces, and then you just glue the sides and then put it all thing together like a package. And the tape works quite well. It holds everything together very nicely. Okay, here's a tip I just read about that I thought was kind of, that's kind of a good one. Keep some wooden skewers, like the kind you grill marshmallows with or make kebabs with in the kitchen. Keep some of those in your shop, and that way when your glue bottles have dried up, can't get your caulk to come out, then you can just point those through the little hole and get the glue to come out, because I often have issues with that. Another tip I thought was neat was to keep some dental floss in the shop. So if you are fixing a crack, you have a crack in the wood and you need to get that glue into like the super fine little area, that can be pretty hard, and you may not want to pry open the wood to break it, then put some glue in and get that dental floss in that hole to kind of like get it in there, because it's so thin. So I thought that was a good one too. As a final one here, when should you actually use different kinds of glue? I mean, we've been primarily talking about woodworking here, so wood to wood. But what if you are gluing wood to other materials? Okay, let's say you're gluing wood to plastic. I would use epoxy or polyurethane glue. Wood to metal, epoxy. How about an outdoor project? Waterproof PVA glue. Of course, another type of glue that's surprisingly handy to keep around the shop is a hot glue gun. Now, the hot glue is surprisingly strong, Not long term though. If you're gonna do something that you want to keep together for years, it does crack over time. But for immediate glue ups, it is very effective. And you can even use hot glue as a clamp as well. So if you have something where you need the yellow glue to, you know, get clamped together, you put some yellow glue spots on your glue, on your wood, and then in between you put some dabs of hot glue and immediately put them together, and then the hot glue will immediately, you know, clamp those two pieces together and give the yellow glue some time to work. So those were some gluing tips. And glue ups, you know, can be such a stressful part of a project, especially if it doesn't go right. And it's also like, you don't want to mess up a glue up just because it's so hard to get it, you know, taking it apart. So definitely worth it to put a little bit of time and effort and prepare before getting to that point. Now, if you have any favorite tips that you like to use when it comes to gluing things together, put them in the comments below. If you're interested in picking up a wax polish like I used for some of these tips, then I use wax polish for like a ton of things in the shop. Anyway, we make those and we sell those, and I'll put the link in the description below. I want to say thanks to our patrons for supporting this channel and the different work. If you want to become a patron, I'll put a link in the description to that as well. So anyway, thanks so much for hanging out with me. Hope you're doing well, and I'll see you soon. Bye.